Alright guys, this video will save you some money. I'm gonna show you why you shouldn't watch Madam Web, even though I'm very disappointed. I really had high hopes, and the result was unbelievable. So in this video you're gonna know more about why you shouldn't watch it. By the way, you can watch the trailer and you will get the whole story. The trailer shows the beginning, the middle, and the end, which is weird. I mean, there's no suspense or make you excited to go and see it. So without further ado, let's begin. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe so you can support my channel. I appreciate it in advance.
So I just saw Madam Web, and I think we may have a front runner for worst movie of 2024 on our hands that is not going to be dethroned, and it's only February. I think Sony have managed to deliver something that is truly worse than Morbius. How is that possible? I have no idea, but they've done it. Now look, when the first trailer for Madam Web dropped, I think we all knew this movie wasn't going to be good. All the red flag signs were there. The trailer was just utterly ridiculous. The dialogue was mind-blowingly bad. And Dakota Johnson dropped her agent the week the trailer came out, which I just find absolutely hilarious. Not to mention, as we got closer to the film's release, actors were subtly shitting on it in interviews. Dakota Johnson even went off about how shitty Hollywood is right now whilst promoting Madam Web. Like, it doesn't take much to read between the lines on that one, and you definitely feel sorry for her after watching the movie. Sony's marketing was also seemingly trying to hide the movie, and the review embargo dropped the day before the movie came out, which is a telltale sign that the studio has absolutely no faith in the movie. So it's safe to say that Sony knew for a fact that this movie was dog shit, and well, we're gonna get into why this movie is complete dog shit. Madam Web is one of the worst superhero movies I have ever seen.
Actually, the worst movie ever made. I mean, except for The Room, if you know what I mean. The Room is so bad, it's funny. But this one is trying to be funny, but it's so cringy, you know.
The acting by some of the cast members is just awful. The editing is worse than my university short films, and the story lacks any focus, and the characters are just something else, man. Now look, I normally try and keep my videos somewhat serious with a little bit of levity, but I've got to go into this one full lighthearted because Jesus, this movie is bad. So let's dive deep into why Madam Web is complete dog shit, and let's just try and have some fun with it, because I definitely didn't have fun watching it. So when there was a Madam Web movie announced, I think we were all wondering the same thing. Because Sony just continues to exploit the Spider-Man world without actually having a Spider-Man. Like, the Venom movies I think are a relatively good time. They're not high art by any means, but they can be fun. Morbius is just, well, Morbius. And now we have Madam Web, and yeah, Sony, it's time to stop. Now look, Morbius was that bad that it became a cultural event. I'd argue Morbius actually left more of a cultural impact than James Cameron's Avatar movies, which is kind of funny to be honest, even though I do like the Avatar movies, but it speaks volumes as to how bad it was, and it just got memed into oblivion. So what did Sony do when making Madam Web to ensure that something like Morbius doesn't happen again? Well, I'll tell you. They hired the same writer who wrote Morbius. Like, you know that meme of the kid who put the stick in the bike wheel? Yeah, that's Sony at this point. Honestly, this just raises suspicion that this movie is a tax write-off for Sony and nothing more, and was intended to be that way before production even started, because there is no way you can set out to make the best movie you can, and you
Okay, that guy had a PSP
even started, because there is no way you can set out to make the best movie you can, and you hire the writer of Morbius and Gods of Egypt. Like, I'm just thinking of Jaime Lannister and Gerard Butler duking it out on top of a pyramid. Like, I've got nothing personal against the writer of Morbius and Madam Web, but Sony, you can hire other people. Like, there is no way they can actually be this incompetent. This has to be a dumpster fire on purpose at this point. Now, Morbius always fell into the category of so bad that it's so memeable that you can actually enjoy it. Madam Web is as bad as Morbius, but without the fun. At least with Morbius, you could kind of tell that Matt Smith especially got the memo of the kind of movie that he was in, and he just had fun with it. I don't think any of the actors here really got that memo of the kind of movie they were in, because despite being as bad as Morbius, all the characters are played pretty straight. The only character that even remotely worked for me here was Dakota Johnson's Cassandra Webb, and that's because it's just Dakota Johnson playing herself with deadpan humor. Like, that was the only skerrick of enjoyment I got out of any of these characters. Madam Web is the quality of Morbius without the fun. The only truly funny thing this movie really did was bait a sequel. Like, are you kidding me? Sony have balls, I will give them that. So let's dive into the movie itself. The story revolves around Dakota Johnson's Cassandra Webb, a paramedic who starts to have premonitions which tie into her past. As a result, she has to protect 3 teenagers who Ezekiel, the film's antagonist, is after as he dreams of the 3 of them killing him, and he wants to stop that from happening. So it's essentially a Terminator movie meets Final Destination. I think that's the best way to describe it, to be honest, which actually sounds really damn cool. But this movie is as if Terminator and Final Destination came together and was written by someone who puts crayons up their nose. That's basically Madam Web. This movie's plot is completely all over the place. It is horribly paced, incredibly contrived, and even though it clocks in at under 2 hours long, it is a seriously hard movie to sit through because you can't even laugh at how bad it is. It's just bad. Now, one of the things that bothered me the most about Madam Web was honestly the editing. There are several moments where the editing just stands out as a big problem. Now, editing is at its best when you don't notice it. Same goes for Foley and dubbing and all of that, which we will get into later because holy shit, the dubbing in this movie. Like, if artists are doing their job properly, you won't notice this stuff. They didn't do their job very well here because it's all I noticed. The editing in several moments sticks out like a sore thumb and is incredibly disorienting and not on purpose. There's a scene where Cassandra goes into a car to rescue someone and it cuts to a shot that makes it look like it's from a different scene. But it's not. It's the same scene. It just makes no sense in the flow of the edit. Now, in filmmaking, there's this thing called the 180-degree rule, where you keep the camera on one side of an imaginary line so you don't disorientate the viewer. It's one of the first things you get taught at film school. Now, you can break the 180-degree rule. It happens all the time, and it's usually for a specific reason. But in Madam Web, they break it, and you quickly learn why the rule exists because it's executed so poorly. Now, this could be down to the director getting the wrong shots or the editor's cat running across their keyboard. Who knows who is to blame? But there's another shot where Cassandra and the 3 teenagers are walking into a warehouse and you get this random half-a-second close-up of Cassandra that serves no purpose other than to completely make the scene as jarring as possible. Like, their editing here is just mind-blowingly bad. I haven't seen a movie with editing this bad in a long time. On top of that, the film's villain, Ezekiel, also seems to have had the majority of his lines in the film dubbed over in post-production, and it is so distracting. There are scenes where he's talking, but his lips just are not moving. You think I'm joking? I'm dead serious. And there are scenes where his lips are moving, but they just don't match what he's saying. It's like that Kung Pao movie, but at least in that movie, the dubbing was intentionally out of sync. It's kind of like that at times. It's actually really funny. But at least in that movie, the dubbing was intentionally out of sync. There's a specific scene in the movie where he jumps down off like a ledge or a step or something as he's talking, and the line is so clearly dubbed in because the line is delivered as if he's sitting on the couch doing nothing. But the problem is, he's just jumped off like a ledge or a step. He's actively moving around. So the delivery just makes absolutely no sense in accordance to the actions. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I've seen a couple people mention this, and I didn't believe it was actually going to be that bad, but it was. I'd love to get the reference footage up for you all to really showcase exactly what I mean, but I mean, it's still in theaters, so that's kind of impossible for me to do. Now, it also doesn't help that the dialogue in this movie is just absolutely terrible in the first place. It's some of the worst dialogue of any comic book movie in recent time. Like, this movie's dialogue makes the Marvels look like Shakespeare. Like, yeah, it's that bad. I swear to God, at times it's as bad as The Room.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
This was actually a major red flag in just the trailer itself. Dakota Johnson has a line in the trailer where she says, "He was in the Amazon with my mum when she was researching spiders right before she died." I'm not exaggerating here either. That's actually a line from the trailer. I'd play the clip, but you know, copyright. Like, if you think the dialogue improves from there in the movie, it doesn't. It actually gets worse. Not to mention, having seen the movie, it's just dawned on me. The entire movie is literally in the trailer. If you've seen the trailer for Madam Web, you've seen the movie. You don't need to waste your money to go and watch it. There's no point even dropping a spoiler warning on this video because the trailer shows you the entire movie. Now, it's also worth noting that the CGI in this movie is laughably bad. I'm talking X-Men Origins Wolverine claws bad. Granted, this movie's budget was around $80 million, and considering how Hollywood is obsessed with $200+ million movies that look pretty much this bad anyway, I'd say you could almost give the shitty CGI here a tiny pass mark, but I'm not going to. It looks terrible. And especially given how strong the CGI was in Godzilla Minus One with a fraction of Madam Web's budget. Like, I'm not letting it off. It deserves to be brought up and it deserves to be criticized. Like, there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where these Amazonian spider people, that's another thing, they don't say Spider-Man or Spider-Men in this movie, it's spider people. It's really weird. Anyway, they carry Cassandra's mother away over these treetops, and it's some of the worst CGI that I have ever seen. And that's the other thing, this movie, it just looks bad. The way it's shot, the way it's put together, it's just visually jarring to sit through. It's horrible. The action scenes are full of shaky cam to cover the obviously terrible choreography and CGI. Like, I'm really struggling to find anything I can actually say that I like about this movie because, like I said, even though Morbius was complete garbage, I can still have a good time watching it because it's just so memeable at this point. This movie, Madam Web, isn't memeable. It's just bad. So if Sony were intentionally trying to recapture that memeable, poor quality of Morbius here, I don't think they even succeeded in doing that. So they've actually failed at making a bad movie on purpose, if that is the case, which is just mind-blowing to me. Now, I do have to talk about the characters here, obviously. Cassandra is our lead character. She is this closed off, talks to a cat all day type of person, so literally me. But she lacks the ability to even accept a child's thank you for saving someone's life, so she's unlikable from the start and almost lacks any empathy. And by the end, it's supposed to be this massive deal that she accepts these three girls as her family. The movie does nothing to earn this, nor as the viewer do you buy that journey for even 1 second. As for those three teenagers, I can't even remember their names. I think one of them was called Julia. That's a guess. I really don't care. Now, conveniently, all three of them have troubles at home, which leads them into coming together with Cassandra as a surrogate mother of sorts. I think it's trying to do a Last of Us type of deal when it comes to the character types here, where you have the older main character who's closed off and then finds connection and humanity through kids who seek the very thing the main character is closed off from. So by the end, it's this big payoff when they all come together and accept each other as family. The problem is, this isn't The Last of Us. This is Morbius 2.0. So this doesn't work at all. Why? Because they hired the writer of Morbius and Gods of Egypt. I've seen a lot of people call this movie a waste of potential, and it is. It's Terminator meets Final Destination with a slice of The Last of Us character dynamics, but absolutely none of it works, even for a second. It's actually impressive how the concept was so mishandled. Now, if I was to give this movie any praise at all, because I know there's going to be that one person that watches this video that unironically thinks this movie is great, so I'll throw them a bone. The villain has a clear motive. That is it. That is all this movie does that I can actually give it credit for. He wants to hunt the three teens down so he doesn't die. It's a clear motive. It doesn't make him any more likable because the rest of the movie is complete garbage and 99% of his dialogue was dubbed in poorly after the fact, but he does have a motive. 10 out of 10 cinematic masterpiece. And I've just realized as I'm scripting this video together, they try and do the "with great power comes great responsibility" line, and they completely butcher it to the point that it makes absolutely no sense. Now it's when you take on great responsibility, great power will come. Yes, it's as stupid as it sounds. Overall, Madam Web is one of the worst comic book movies I have ever seen. If you told me I had to watch Madam Web or Morbius, I'm watching Morbius 10 times over. This is a poorly written, poorly edited, poorly directed example of everything a comic book movie should not be. I didn't have high expectations for this film at all. In fact, I had very low expectations. But I didn't truly believe it could possibly be worse than Morbius. But I'm willing to say that I think it is worse. At least you can have fun watching Morbius, as bad as it is. There is nothing fun about watching Madam Web. I absolutely love that I get to do this movie YouTube thing for a living, but this was one of the super rare occasions where watching the movie actually felt like work. Madam Web, through and through, is a complete disaster.
So guys, I hope you learned about why you shouldn't watch this movie. You can thank me later for saving you money. And yeah, let's see what Sony is up to next. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button and the subscribe button so you can help me grow this channel. So see you on the next one, guys.